Hello everybody and thank you for joining me. Today's chapter of the Shulchan Aruch, today's chapter is 7 Reish, chapter 200, Dina Hakvur B'Yom Tov, Loads of burial in Yom Tov. Number 1. If the deceased awaits burial on the first day of Yom Tov, a Jew is not allowed to bury him. Even if it is impossible to have it done by non-Jews, and there is the concern that decay might set in before the next day, nevertheless a Jew may not bury him on the first day of Yom Tov. But if it is possible to have non-Jews bury him, that is to have non-Jews dig the grave and cut the wooden planks and make the coffin where it is customary, and sew the shrouds if necessary, then dressing him, heating the water, washing him, removing him and placing him into the grave are permitted to be done by a Jew. Many of the earlier poskim have shown and disagree with this ruling. They maintain that since the majority part of the burial will be done through non-Jews, it is better to have them do everything. This is also the opinion of the Radvaz and the Gra. See Mishnah Bor 526:12. Covering him with earth must also be done only by non-Jews. If possible, care should be taken to cleanse and purify him without using a cloth, in order not to wring out the water. Number 2, some poskim say, if it is possible to have the burial performed by non-Jews, as stated above, it is forbidden to keep the body till the next day, in order that Jews may attend to it. And even if he died that day, and his body could be kept till the next day without decay setting in, nevertheless he should be buried that day by non-Jews. In the case of an infant who died, even if he lived more than 30 days, whereby we know that he is not an aborted fetus, nonetheless, if the weather is cold, it is not a dishonor to keep him, as he has not become malodorous. He should not be buried on the first day of Yom Tov, but he should be kept until the second day of Yom Tov. Some say even in the case of an adult, if he has not become malodorous, his burial should be delayed until the second day of Yom Tov. In a place where there is no fixed custom, it's proper to follow the latter opinion. Number 3. On the second day of Yom Tov, even the second day of Rosh Hashanah, if it is possible to accomplish the above mentioned things by delaying through non-Jews, they should be done by non-Jews. The other things should be done by Jews, as was previously stated. The purification may be performed with clothes and sheets, but care must be taken not to wring the water out of them directly. If it is impossible to have these things done by non-Jews, Jews may attend to all his needs as though it were a weekday, because the second day of Yom Tov, with reference to the dead, was regarded by the sages as a weekday. Nevertheless, if someone in that area had previously prepared shrouds for themselves, those shrouds should be used in order to avoid the need of sewing. It is permitted to attend to his needs only when they intend to bury him on that day. But if they do not intend to bury him on that day, no preparation should be made for his burial, and it is even forbidden to handle the body. Number 4, the sages consider the second day of Yom Tov as a weekday with regard to the dead, in order to honor the dead and not permit him to lie in disgrace. However, to do anything unconnected to his burial is forbidden. Therefore, it is forbidden to negotiate with the shopkeeper about the price of linen for the shrouds, unless it is impossible to obtain it otherwise, as when it can be bought from a non-Jew. Jewish grave diggers are forbidden to accept remuneration for their work on a Yom Tov, because wages for work done on Shabbos or Yom Tov are forbidden. If they refuse to work without pay, they may be paid, but they'll have to face the judgment of the heavenly court. The burial society should not take money for the grave on Yom Tov, but they may accept pledges collateral without stipulating the price of the grave. Number 5. If there's no Jewish cemetery in town, although there is a place where this deceased can be buried, nevertheless, it's permitted to take him to another city on the first day of Yom Tov by a non-Jew, and on the second day of Yom Tov even by a Jew, in order to bury him in a Jewish cemetery. But if the burial will not take place on that day, it's forbidden for a Jew to move on Yom Tov in order to bury him after Yom Tov. Number 6. It is permitted to accompany the deceased within the Tuchum on the first day of Yom Tov, and on the second day of Yom Tov even outside the Tuchum. It is also permitted to return home on that very day. However, it is forbidden to ride upon an animal in order to accompany the dead on Yom Tov, even on the second day of Yom Tov. Even the mourners are not permitted. If it is impossible for the grave diggers to go by foot, they are permitted to ride on an animal on the second day of Yom Tov. Nevertheless, they should not ride in the city. Number 7. If one dies on the night of the second day of Yom Tov, when it is permitted for Jews to attend the burial, if there are no non-Jews to do so, 10 men should rise in the morning and bury him at the time of the Chazan recites the Piyutim, the festival hymns. If he was a distinguished person, so that a multitude of people are obligated to accompany him, he should be buried after people leave the synagogue before the meal is eaten. For the Midrash states, it is written, You shall not eat with the blood, which signifies that it is forbidden to eat a regular meal before the deceased is buried. If it is impossible to make all the preparations for the burial by that time, he should be buried after the meal. Number 8. If an infant dies after 30 days, so that it is certain that it is not an aborted fetus, the same law applies to him as to an adult. However, if he is a male and for some reason he was not yet circumcised, even though decay is setting in, he should not be buried on the first day of Yom Tov because his foreskin must be removed, as stated above in chapter 163:7, and that cannot be done by a non-Jew. Rather, it should be held over until the second day of Yom Tov, for it's permitted to delay the burial for his honor, and on the second day his foreskin should be removed, and he should be buried. Number 9. If an infant dies and there is doubt if it is an aborted fetus, if the case is not yet set in, it may not be buried on the first day of Yom Tov, even by a non-Jew, and it is held over till the second day of Yom Tov, and is then buried by a non-Jew and not by a Jew. If decay has set in, it should be buried on the first day of Yom Tov by a non-Jew. If it died on the second day of Yom Tov, it should be buried on that very day by a non-Jew and not by a Jew. If he is a male and was not yet circumcised, even if decay has set in, he should not be buried even on the second day of Yom Tov, and not even by a non-Jew, but he should be held over until after Yom Tov. His foreskin should then be removed, and he should be buried. Number 10. On Shabbos and Yom Kippur, it is not permitted to attend the dead in any way, even by means of a non-Jew. On Chol HaMoed, the deceased should not be brought to the cemetery before the grave is ready, so it is not necessary for the bier to remain waiting. Thank you for listening, and I wish you all the best, and I wish you a Gemar Chatzima Tova. Bye.